Welcome fathers who are looking to inspire their kids and become fearless. This is the Become a Fearless Father show and I'm your host, Klaas van Oosterhout. I'm a father of 2 boys, husband and entrepreneur. This show is created to teach you how to take control and enjoy the most difficult job you've ever faced, fatherhood. I'm going to keep it real and share real life experience. A heads up, there is no magic pill. You will have to put in the hours, sweat and tears to achieve victory. Are you ready to improve your health, wealth, relationships, knowledge and become the hero your family needs you to be? I know you are. So get your pen and paper ready and let's become fearless fathers together.
And we are live. Fearless Fathers is live with Devin Henderson. I am so excited to have you on, dude. It's going to be a blast. We'll take full advantage of the time that we have with you. Let's start off. Tell us who you are and, how you got where you are, etc. All the good stuff.
Yeah, man. Gosh. So my name's Devin Henderson. I live in the United States. In a nutshell, I am a keynote speaker. So I usually kick off or end conferences, and my background is in magic and stand-up comedy. So I have a couple of different messages that I give, mainly things along the lines of how to use humor in everyday life to deal with difficult situations like stress, people, change, all that. I'm not necessarily a stress expert. I'm not a change expert. I'm a humor expert. So I could talk about stress and everything, but anyway, that's just a little background. I also talk about sharing your magic. So like using your gift to make an impact on the people that you lead. And then I have a keynote called Come Fail Away, which is all about just try things, be innovative, be creative, fail, pick up the ball and move on. So I just live this life where I try to balance family with travel and doing keynote speaking. And I love my job. Sometimes it definitely feels like a job. Other times it feels like play. But yeah, man, that's me in a nutshell. So
that's awesome. And for the people that don't know you, you got 5 daughters, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that also.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
Yes. Tell me about it.
So let's dive right in, man. You mentioned in one of your emails that you're preparing yourself for 3 different conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And that must, like you mentioned, like sometimes it feels like a job. And you're on the road. Everything just takes a lot of time. I can only assume. So, I've noticed a lot of fathers are struggling with really organizing the time well. They have to travel to work every day, and coming back, of course, and then also spend time with their families. Maybe even work out, do all the good stuff as well. And I'm just wondering, man, with your life, with all the traveling that you do, and the stand up, and the, everything that's going on. How do you make sure that everything, how do you time manage? How do you make sure that everything gets your divided attention?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we talk about the 3 conferences I'm preparing for. It's 3 very different roles I'm doing. I have right now through the end of October is crazy for me. It's just conference time, So this morning, I did a keynote for a conference here in Kansas City. And yesterday, I was customizing the speech all day long. I tend to kind of put it off. I don't really put it off to the last minute, but every time I customize a keynote, it's like I'm cramming for finals, because ideally you would have this all planned out a couple weeks beforehand, but I'm basically just approaching each conference as it comes. So, I'll collect some notes and do a little research, sometimes months, 2 or weeks prior to an event, but the bulk of my customization happens within like 2 to 3 days beforehand. So the reason I tell you that is because I'm teaching I play piano. And so I'm teaching our 8-year-old piano, and we just sit down when we can, and she wants me to teach her Star Wars because she found out that when I was her age, I was playing Star Wars. So she's like, okay, I have to learn Star Wars. So I was kind of working overtime last night trying to prepare for this morning's keynote. and I was starting to teach her Star Wars, but one of my processes as for customizing for keynotes is I just have to walk a lot. And once I have everything in order, I just like to walk and sort of rehearse, right? Because you sort of have to commit this to memory, because I don't like to get on stage and use notes. It seems impersonal. So I knew I had to walk last night, and I had to choose between teaching piano and taking a walk. And last night I chose the walk because it was urgent, right? Because I know there's going to be time tonight and tomorrow for me to teach that piano. But sometimes you feel like you're throwing your family under the bus because you have to spend an evening preparing for something. But it is a constant balance. So you have to make sure that if you're putting your work before your kids at one point, that you're balancing that later, that they know that you love them more than your work, that they're more important to you. It's just the way that when, life for an entrepreneur, and I guess for anybody, the schedule looks different. I'm not working a 9 to 5, so it's not like every night from, 4 to 7 is family time. It doesn't look that way for us, and we homeschool. So I'm here all day long. So I have opportunities during the day to go on bike rides and hang out. So it's really every day when I wake up and I have my to-do list, which I'm learning lately that to-do lists are very deceptive. They make you feel like you're productive when sometimes it's just good to check things off the list sometimes. But my spending time with my girls is on that to-do list every day so that I don't forget. Just take 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, half an hour here to just sit down and read a book or talk or play the piano or go shoot baskets. Because with 5 kids, you're right. I mean, I have to pay individual attention to each one, and that just takes intentionality.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just wondering, man, because your 8-year-old probably was expecting you to work with her on the piano. How do you go about then? Because, well, if I tell my 5-year-old something, this is what we're going to do, and I have to change it, and he gets not crushed, but you know what I mean. So I'm just wondering, how do you go about explaining to your 8-year-old then, okay, this is what has to be done right now, or I'm going to make it up to you, or how do you go about tackling that?
Yeah, it's different. Every situation is different and every child is different. But the way that it worked last night is she knew that I had this speech. And so I think our kids sort of accept this is dad's job. Most dads go away 9 to 5. And so they realize that our life just looks different. So we've tried to teach them to expect kind of dad leaves at weird times sometimes and comes back at weird times. So they're used to me be gone for a night or two, excuse me. But it is important, you're right, to explain that, to say I have to go rehearse my speech. But before I went and rehearsed my speech, I got her started on Star Wars. So I showed her the first tune, the first couple of chords. So she actually had something to work on while I went on my walk. So when I left, she started crying because she couldn't get it right. And so I kept having to show her the chords over and over again. And finally, when she was crying, I was like, oh, and she goes, if you stay, it's just going to make me cry more. So she actually needs that alone time to work on that song. So when I came back, I taught her sort of just a few of the next chords. So it's actually, if you can work it and time it out right, it was actually good that I left so that she could rehearse, because she has to have that time by herself to just work out the fingering and everything. So when I came back, she was ready for the next part. So it doesn't always work out that beautifully to where they need you to go away. But when you can work it like that, it's good.
Nice. And that also means that she already has the patience and to work on it by herself.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. She has sort of like my work ethic in that we just become obsessed with something until we get it. We put hours in just to the mechanics just to get it right. So
that's awesome. I watch my 2-year-old sometimes when he plays with his Duplos, the Legos, the bigger blocks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He can't get them right, and I just see him go, and then just shoot the Lego flying through the house, and everything breaks in parts, and it just makes me giggle.
Well, it's funny you're saying that. I don't know what direction you wanted to take this next, but kids get frustrated, man.
Yeah.
And I know that you were probably going to ask something along these lines anyway, but how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the kids losing it, right? Because Charlotte was the same way, becoming frustrated with the piano. something similar happened a couple weeks ago where Charlotte was trying to eat Chinese food with chopsticks. So we're at home, and you know, have you ever seen a kid try to use chopsticks? It's ridiculous, right? Do you do that in Spain? Do you guys eat with chopsticks for fun?
Only when we go to Chinese restaurants and we specifically ask for it, so they won't bring it to you.
Yeah, exactly. Because they don't want to embarrass you when you can't do it, so they just assume you're not. We do it for fun. I say for fun. It's not real fun all the time for the kids, but she was trying to use it, and we were at home. She couldn't get it, so she took them and just chucked them at the window. And I think our culture, you know, I can only speak for the U.S. because this is, you know, all I know, would basically say, okay, here's how you put that kid in her place. You say, no, bad, pick them up, clean the window, go to your room, no more dinner, you're done for the night. You know, like you just reprimand them. And I just don't think that works in everything I've read and heard and experienced. What I did is I don't always have the presence of mind to do it, but I just cracked up because it was funny to me. And then she laughed and my wife laughed. Now everybody's laughing about this stressful situation. And you know, laughing doesn't work every single time as a parent. You know, you can't laugh if they come over and they're like, hey, I set the neighbor's porch on fire. That's hilarious. You know, there's obviously certain limits. You can't always laugh, but more times than not, humor is just an awesome tool for situations like that. And she's going to learn so much more from dad just lightening up than dad coming down and yell. Because I've been on the opposite side where I yell and I might throw things or punch the wall and I am really angry. And that just scares them, you know, because fear is no way to lead or father. So it's about keeping your cool and just learn to laugh.
Absolutely. So how do you find the balance in between, okay, and now it's laughing, now we got to be a bit more serious? Is that just experience, or how do you...
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I know you're really enjoying the show. Just want to make sure if you're liking this information, please subscribe and press the like button. And also, go visit becomeafearlessfather.com. You get the opportunity to share your biggest challenge at the moment as a father. And it gives me the opportunity to try and help you overcome this. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, you know, it's really in the moment. Sometimes your emotions take over. And usually when you're making an emotional reaction, it's usually the wrong one, from what I found, because anger works its way in there so easy. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a proverb that says a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. And that's how I feel when I lose my temper. I feel like this city that's been broken into and left without walls, where it takes intentionality to do the right thing. It takes a presence of mind. So I have to constantly think in those situations when our oldest is just pushing back and complaining and just is relentless, rather than just jerking her and throwing her outside. What that one needs is just love. Like a hug heals that child and changes her around like anger never will. You know, if you think you can like scream these kids into submission, you're wrong. I mean, I thought I was going to be like a tyrant of a father before I had kids. I thought I'm just going to yell and scream at them like I'm a drill sergeant, you know, like Sound of Music, Dad, and they're just going to obey me, and I'm going to have no problems. But my wife and I took a course at our church early on by a guy named Ted Tripp, and it's called Shepherding a Child's Heart. And it's all about not just trying to shape the behavior, which is what our culture's after. It's like that kid's screaming in the toy store because they want a toy and that mom's not doing anything. Well, sometimes not doing anything is the answer, you know, and it doesn't look right to other people, but we're the only one who knows where our child's heart is and how we're trying to shape it. So sometimes it just takes patience, and you just have to let them throw the fit. And you have to look a little odd and get like eye rolls from other parents and just be like, I know what I'm doing here. I'm shepherding their heart. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Shaping the heart takes the whole time they're growing up. If you want to shape their behavior, sure, get a whip, and you know, they'll listen to you, but you're screwing them up. And later in life, that's going to rear its ugly head, and you're going to realize, oh, that kid was good to my face because they were afraid of me, but now they're really going to go explore and be the horrible monster you created them to be.
Exactly. I like the fact that you brought up the hug as well. I actually had a live interview last Monday with Dr. Andy Cope from England. He's the only psychotherapist, I think you say, for happiness.
Oh, okay.
I had the perfect week. I got someone on happiness and someone on humor, so it's absolutely perfect this week. He was saying that hugs are the life thread of a child, or actually any person, but especially a child, and we should give as many hugs as possible, but make the hug 7 seconds instead of the normal 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So just for all the people out there, and maybe even for you, it works, and it's working, at least in this house, it's working magic.
Yeah, cool. That's good to know. Awesome.
I even do it with the dogs. Devin, besides humor, you must have your energy levels like spot on, because between homeschooling your kids, between your work, and then between being on stage where your energy, of course, has to be really peaking. So I'm just wondering, how do you make sure? Because I've noticed, at least for me, it's been a struggle to always have the right high level of energy at the right time, right? How do you go about it? Do you have some sort of system to make sure that your energy levels are guaranteed at the moments that you need them most?
Yeah. Actually, my energy levels are very low. I don't know if I have never been diagnosed an insomniac, but I would label myself an insomniac. I have trouble sleeping. So growing up, I was addicted to pop. We were raised on Coke and Dr. Pepper and all that. So I was like addicted to sugar. And a couple of years ago, I quit cold turkey, haven't touched it. It's either been 4 years or 5 years, and sort of replaced it with coffee, with no sugar, just 1 to 2 cups a day earlier in the day. So I don't know, if all that pop over those years hurt my system, hurt my immune system. I also have allergies. And so I hear, your immune system's working overtime, so you're tired because of that. I also had mono in college. So I've got these, I sound like Mr. Disease guy. I mean, I just had all these things in my life that I don't really know what to trace it back to. In fact, we're very holistic here. I haven't been to a real doctor in years, but I'm seeking out a doctor, and I have someone in mind who is basically a chiropractor and a holistic doctor, and he apparently is good at figuring out why someone can't sleep well and why their energy levels are low. So basically, I'm faking having a lot of high energy, faking in the sense that I just have to pretty much take a power nap every day, and I am an introvert, so time with people drains me. So I have to make sure that I'm not scheduling like 2 coffees in one day. So I'm sort of compensating for not having energy by doing things that allow me to get adequate rest. And I don't overwork myself so that I can have that any energy that I do have for my kids. Because there's some days where I'm like, I can't do it. I can't read you a book tonight. I can't carry you and sing you Silent Night, which is our nightly tradition. Sometimes for my kids, I push myself beyond the limit. And we'll read that Berenstain Bears book, even when I don't feel like it. And then there's some nights where I'm just so pooped out that I'm just like, no, I just can't do it tonight. But I realize this is a problem. I mean, because being fatigued as a parent, kind of as a chronic thing, is tough. I'm sure something that a lot of people deal with. So I'm just now starting on the journey to figure out how can I overcome this, rather than accept it as that's just who I am. I really want to work to fix this. And I think one of the things is we're really trying to just go to bed earlier and wake up earlier and have that rhythm. Because as I speak, sometimes my gigs are like after dinner shows, and I don't get home till midnight. So it's hard to get into that rhythm. But we're really trying to get into that rhythm of lights out at 9. Kids are in bed by 8:30, lights out by 9, and then mom and dad are in bed by 9:30, lights out by 10, getting up around 6. You're trying to get that 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. So that's, not what you were expecting probably on the energy question, but there you go.
No, but of course, you never know what kind of answer you can expect. But I'm really appreciative of the fact that you share so openly, what your struggles are and how you're going about continuing issues. What I really like and what I'm trying to really teach fathers out there is that it's not something that you just have or don't have. It's something that you continuously work on. And what you're explaining right now is that you're talking to this person, you're having this friend that helps you out. That's exactly the example of things I want to show and want to share with the people, is that that's so important. You have a problem and you just continuously keep working on it and keep trying things until you find what works best for you, because we're all different individuals in the end.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you sharing this. I'm skipping a little bit. I want to talk about this thing as well. We both know that being a father can be very stressful at sometimes. Just life in general, but I can only assume that your house is going to be sometimes even more stressful than other people's house that have just one kid or two, as in my case. And I listen a lot to Eric Thomas, and I love when he was saying that you're either in a storm, just out of a storm, or you're going to be you're about to get into one. Now, you learn to take care of these storms by using humor. You just explained that really well, with the dinner accident, throwing sticks. But I'm wondering, what's your step-by-step process that fathers can put into action to start implementing humor into their arsenal to be able to deal appropriately? Like what you're saying, we can also throw a fit, and that's so much easier to all kinds of different situations or things that pop up.
Yep. So this is back to the basics for me. When there's a high stress situation with the kids, the first thing I do is I take a deep breath. I take a deep breath. If I can, I smile. And then I think about, is there funny in this situation? So what I encourage my audiences to do is to put on something I call the 3D glasses of comedy. And the 3Ds stand for different, difficult, and dumb, which is things that whether you're a parent or not, you're dealing with things that are difficult, different, and dumb all day, every day. And usually those are stress inducers, So if something different happens, there's a new system at work you have to deal with, or something's difficult. It's just, you spill your coffee on your shirt, or your kids are screaming at you, or whatever your difficult situation is, or something that's dumb. It's just weird. It's ridiculous. And it's complicating your life in some way. So to look at life through those 3D glasses of comedy, much like you would if you're watching a 3D movie, you have to wear those glasses in order for the images to pop out at you. And if you want to find the funny and use humor as a therapeutic tool in your life, you've got to wear those 3D glasses of comedy, which means you are anticipating things that are different, difficult, and dumb. So when you see those things and you're looking at life through that lens, the funny starts to pop out at you. And this is how comedians operate. We're constantly looking for things. What's hard out there? What's difficult? What's different? What's dumb? And as soon as we see it, it's like there's an opportunity for comedy there. So I'm not saying you should become a comedian. I'm just saying if you have that lens, then your creativity will allow you to say, okay, yeah, this is a stressful situation, but what's the funny in it? And when it comes to my kids and something that happens that's difficult, they're screaming, they won't do their homework. They're talking back to me. They're fighting each other. They're slapping each other, which is the biggest one. They're always fighting, right? Is to just like, don't yell, don't correct. Just take that deep breath. If I can, smile about it, and then think, okay, what's funny? Like a comedian, So just a quick example of this. I was on a flight the other day, and my flight attendant was one of those people who I can tell wears the 3D glasses of comedy always. Like this lady was born with these. These are the people who are like funny all the time. They're always cracking jokes. They always have a positive attitude. So here's what happened. The flight attendant was coming down the aisle with the drink cart, and the guy next to me ordered his drink, and he said, "I'll take an ice water, but hold the ice," which is just dumb, right? I mean, I'm not faulting the guy. We all say dumb things, but ice water, hold the ice. So the flight attendant took a cup, filled it with ice, poured water into it, handed it to the guy and said, "That'll be ready in just a minute." Which, for her, she saw the funny in someone asking for ice water, hold the ice. You could just say water, right? So she made a joke, and we all laughed about it, And very, very simple. I don't think it's something that necessarily would have made her like bang her head against the wall. But if we're constantly watching for that, we're able to laugh more in those situations.
Nice. I'm loving it. And that's, of course, then just something that you keep practicing, keep reminding to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not something you get over time, no? It's something that you have to.
It does take practice. I mean, just like it takes a long time for a comedian to learn how to turn ordinary things into funny. The more you live with those 3D glasses of comedy on, the more you're going to flip those stressful situations into livable situations.
I'm loving it. I'm going to start trying that right away.
All right.
They're going to have to go to bed after this interview, so they're probably going to have to throw a fit. Something else that just one of the questions that are really important to me. I got a good friend of mine. He's American. He's got 2 daughters. And he asked me, he shared this challenge with me. And well, I got 2 boys, so I think that really is, you look differently at it. So he's very fearful of his girls growing up. Not his girls, but of the fact of the outside world, of what they're going to walk into, right? And I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts about this? And how do you go about preparing your girls for the world, starting, going out on their own?
Yeah. Well, I have a plan when they start dating. So when they're 60, I'm going to FaceTime during their whole date. And I'm going to strategically put their phone on their head so that I can see everything that's going on. What do you think, man? And I'm hoping by then there's going to be some technology that will allow me to control her head movement. So if he comes in for the kiss, I can headbutt the sucker, right? And people are like, what if she just takes it off? Well, then I will come over from the next booth in the restaurant and say, put it back on, young lady. No, I've thought about this a lot. And I think about things, well, it's good to have a home security system, for when I'm away. I've never been a dog person. Don't tell my kids this, but I'm starting to think like it wouldn't be bad to have a dog, right? So these are things about how do I keep them safe in the home. But as they get older, I mean, there's so many areas of danger, right? So one of the areas of danger that I think about is like things that they could stumble onto online, decent websites and that kind of thing. So we're very careful to have the parental controls set in place and to actively be checking history to make sure they didn't find any loopholes. Our oldest is 11, so they're not doing phones anytime soon at all. So the only devices they're looking at is like our desktop, our iPad, and maybe our phones. But it's a very limited time and very supervised time. I think why give a cell phone to a kid? I don't necessarily have a soapbox about this one, but I don't think an 11-year-old needs a cell phone. If they're going to be at a friend's house and the parent feels the need for them to have a phone, have a family cell phone that they can have, but don't give them ownership over it in that this is yours all the time, So I think I don't have an age, but I've heard like don't do it before the age of 13. And honestly, to me, that even kind of sounds young, In my mind, I have more of a 15 or 16 age. Like once they start getting into like more babysitting type jobs, they're going to need it then. But even then, it could be a family cell phone. They don't need it. I am sort of like, I hate technology. I hate it. Like if I could live without Facebook and a cell phone, if I could go back about 40 years, I grew up in the 80s. If I could like live during that time now, that's where I'd be. I think we're too connected these days. I think the world's becoming impersonal. That's again, just me on my soapbox. But obviously that's just one area where I need to protect my girls and be intentional. I just see so many people giving cell phones to their kids in elementary schools and they have no idea what their kids are looking at, and parental controls. I mean, there's loopholes. And that can really, really have a devastating effect on a child if they stumble onto something they shouldn't be seeing at that, at that time. in terms of protecting them into the dating age, I mean, when they're 16, 17, high school, there's not going to be any just one-on-one dates. It's going to be going out with friends. I'm going to know where they are. I'm going to know whose house they're at. I know there's older parents out there going, oh yeah, try it. Yeah. Good luck with that. I realize I'm going to run into challenges at the time and be like, I don't know where they've been for the last 3 hours because they won't answer the family cell phone text. And so I just realized those are some of the challenges that I'm going to face someday. But I think the more you plan for it, the more success you're going to see, So I don't know. Can I clarify anything else in terms of my plans did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I just keep, because as I mentioned, I got boys, so I have no idea how that's going to work out for me. But I really, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. There's one more thing, like sex talk, right? So I have 5 girls. I know dads that are like terrified of their daughter having their first period. I don't understand why they're so freaked out. We are just so open in our house. I mean, from the time they're about 6 or 7, we begin the sex talk. That doesn't mean we're teaching, the details and intercourse and all that. It's just that we're slowly wetting their feet, and it's kind of like a zero entry pool where you just start walking in, because if you wait and just jump into the deep end someday, it's too late, right? They don't want to hear it from you. But if you get them comfortable with, hey, you can talk to dad about anything. So when they hear terms later on from friends wherever, and they're like, what does that mean? I want to be the first one that they come to, not like, well, dad probably doesn't know what that is. I want them to know that dad knows everything. So even when they're young, when they're 6, 7, we start introducing them to, okay, where do babies come from? Mommy's tummy, and exactly how the baby comes out. Well, how did it get there? Well, it takes a man and a woman to be in love to make a baby. And then it's like, oh, they have to hug. There's physical contact. So again, we're getting them closer to the idea, but we haven't quite gotten them to explicit things yet. As they've gotten a little older, they know that certain body parts have to touch, but that's it. We don't have to go to like exact intercourse. And so I'm trying not to get too graphic, but give you an idea of what I'm thinking. I know there's parents going like, how do I do the sex talk? It's just gradual, and you start them young, and they'll kind of be like, sometimes I'll know when I've gone too far, and they'll be like, okay, and that's when I know, okay, step back. But sometimes I can tell they keep asking questions and asking questions. I'm like, okay, I want to be the one to teach them. So I would rather take the risk and accidentally tell them too much too soon than to just kind of, take myself out of it and be like, you know what, they'll figure it out. They'll find a magazine. They'll find a website or a friend someday who can explain it to them. No, I'd rather take the risk at telling them too much too early. But as long as I'm the source, I think that's the healthiest way to go about it.
Exactly. I like that advice. I actually haven't thought about it yet. So
yeah, they all know they're going to bleed someday. They know where from. They know why. They know what to do when it happens. Mom teaches them, the tools you use to deal with it and everything, so that there's not this, what is happening to my body? Yeah, am I dying? Because I can't believe some people don't prepare their kids for that. It's like, your kid's going to be bleeding someday and probably freaked out that they're dying. You gotta set them up for this. Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah. No, thanks. I love when people just keep sharing, especially these kind of things that are topics that, as you mentioned, most people don't talk about with their kids. They don't. So it's great that people hear this and hopefully learn from this and start with the first step of thinking about it. Like, okay, how can I approach this or use this information and start teaching them. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
And kids know so much more than we think they do. You just have to assume that they know more than you've told them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I actually want to tell you ask you if you've ever seen the movie Bad Boys 2.
No, is that with Tim Allen and?
It's with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. There's a scene in there where the daughter of Martin Lawrence goes out on her first date, and Will Smith plays a drunk ass uncle with a gun, and he just it's hilarious. You gotta watch it. It's my favorite scene. I wished I had a daughter because that's the one thing that I would like to do one time in my life.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Anyway, watch it. Maybe it's a good approach for when your daughter goes on her first date.
I'll learn from it.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm getting to my last question. The one thing I'm interested in, as you know, I live in Spain. Here, well, not just in Spain, but in Europe, things are very different, especially in regards to the school system. And you just mentioned you're homeschooling your kids. That's something here that, at least in Spain, as far as I know, that's not even legal. You can't do that. I'm just wondering, what made you decide this, and how does it work?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, froze for a second. What is it and how does it work?
Yeah.
So homeschool is just what it sounds like. Your kids don't go to a public school or a private school. They stay at home and you teach them. So think, if you're in America, think sort of like pioneer days when people were building log cabins on the prairie and they went to school right there at home, and you teach your kids to read and to do math. The way that it works, I mean, you have to get registered through the state, and once they get old enough, they have to do testing and everything. But there's curriculum. I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands of different curriculum you can buy to teach your kids. So just like you'll find textbooks in school, they have that available to people who homeschool their kids. So you could have one curriculum that covers every subject. So like I could buy one curriculum brand that, has a science and a math section and a history. Or some people like pick and choose. They're like, well, I like the science from this one, but the math from this one. Mm-hmm. So it's basically just sit your kid down every day and here's your math sheet. And you just, when you need to draw on the whiteboard, you write out math problems for them. But it's not as ours isn't as structured as people who don't homeschool think it is. They're like, okay, so it should be. We try to, but life just isn't like that. You know what I mean? Because we have, like this morning, the kids have an art class. So they went to that at 10 o'clock. On Tuesday, they go to an all-day homeschool co-op with other homeschool kids. And so it's basically like that feels like real school to them. They get one day a week of real school where they're learning with other kids, eating lunch, having gym. So that's, that kind of lets them feel what real school feels like. And it's fun because that way they have friends, they're socialized. And people are always worried about, do they get socialized? But I mean, we have play dates all the time. We have kids in our neighborhood. There's opportunity out there to make sure your kid has friends and is getting socialized. That's probably the biggest question I get with homeschooling. But sometimes it looks like wake up and you do your math sheet before breakfast because you're feeling it, like you want to do it. And there's some days where you're fighting to get your kid to do their math sheet. It's fun because you can teach at your own pace. And every moment is a teaching moment. We're just reading books and showing them words in the books. I think for me, one of the biggest blessings that I see in it that I didn't anticipate was that since we're responsible for our kids' education, we are constantly thinking, what can I teach this kid? Mm-hmm. Whereas I don't want to knock other types of schools, but if someone else is teaching your kid and they ask you a question or you're thinking they need to learn this, you're thinking someone else will teach them that. But it's such a privilege to be able to just teach virtually everything to your kids. Not that other parents can't do it. I mean, they can teach them anything they want to, but me, I'm in this role as a homeschool dad where I'm conditioned to think like this responsibility is on my shoulders to teach my kids pretty much everything. So we have fun ways of learning. People talk about so much time is wasted in public school. I'm not saying that I think that, because I think we waste time at home too. I'm just saying we can be more intentional with every minute of our day. And we can have recess when the child needs recess rather than, man, the child is going flipping ape right now, but we can't get him outside for another hour because that's when our recess time is. As an adult, we know sometimes we have to leave and go outside and take a walk right now. We can't wait an hour. We have that luxury as adults, but we expect kids to live according to our timeline, our agenda, our schedule, and to act accordingly. But it's like, every kid is so different and has so many different needs at different times of the day that you sort of have to be in tune and listen to the needs of your child and act accordingly.
Absolutely. I like that. What was the choice? Why did you say, okay, because did any of them go to school in the beginning, or how did that come about to make the decision, okay, we prefer to keep kids at home?
We just were kind of looking at our public school options, and we weren't crazy about our situation. So we were like, okay, we could do private school, which is really expensive, by the way. And we thought, if we have this many kids, it's going to be tough. We're going to be having to make some serious sacrifices if we're going to do private school. And we knew about homeschool. So that just ended up initially being the logistically the best choice for us with where we were and the community we were around. But it is important for us to now have a list of why do we do it. Because a lot of times when my wife needs to vent and she'll go to someone who doesn't homeschool, they'll be like, why don't you just public school? I mean, the answer is so easy for them. Just stop doing that crazy thing that you're doing. And my wife's tempted to go, yeah, you're right. But we have to remember why we're doing it. We have to have our reasons. So every once in a while we sort of go through, okay, and we haven't listed them out yet, which is what we need to do, and sort of have a family mission statement, which we're working on. But we have to remember, I travel. And since I travel, it's nice to have a more flexible schedule so that I can spend time with them during the day if I need to. Sometimes, since they're not in school, if I have a road trip and my gig's 4 hours away, we'll all jump in the minivan and go. Something that you couldn't do with public school without worrying about what work are they going to have to make up when they come back. So with my job, my lifestyle, it is the way to live for us. I mean, I love waking up every day like I'm at school, and we eat breakfast together. We start the day together. It's just good for us. And not to mention the whole, some of the things I've heard that they've been learning in public school. And I know that there's that whole debate, well, you can't shelter a kid forever, but sometimes people in public school will surprise the parents, and the kids will learn graphic things, terms they shouldn't be learning yet. I'm way far over the line. And then the parents have now lost that control of, I was the one who was going to teach you that, who's going to tell you about that when the time was right. Okay. Not to say that things aren't going to slip through the cracks too with homeschooling, but just some of the things that are being taught out there, we're just thankful that we have a say in the timing and the manner in which that's going to be taught. So those are just a couple, and that's the tip of the iceberg on the reasons we homeschool.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I was really interested, and since I heard already before that you were homeschooling, I had that one down. Like, I think that was the first one I written down because I want to see how other people do that and see hopefully how I can organize that maybe in the future. And maybe, who knows, maybe you have to move to America to set that up.
You can't do it in Spain. It's not allowed.
As far as I know, no, you can't. No, they have to go to school here. Yeah. And there's more countries in Europe. It's changing a little bit. Like I know in the UK, for example, I got a friend over there who does homeschool. So it will come. But as you know, well, I don't know if you know, but usually what happens in America then slowly flows here. Movies, everything, books, all that stuff. So
I hope that's true of homeschooling too. There's people here that want to shut it down.
Oh, really?
I don't want to get too much into it, but I mean, there's pushback here for homeschooling. So that's something you might, I don't think we need to get into, but you might look into that also. So.
Excellent. Great. Well, I really appreciate you've been on. Thank you so much. And just my last thing, how can fathers get in touch with you? If they have some extra questions, or maybe if they want to keep following you and go to one of your conferences or keynote speak when you're speaking.
Yep. You can connect with me on Facebook, which should be easy through this, right? You can either like my page, or if you want to send me a personal friend request, that's cool too. And you can PM me if you have any questions. My website is devinhenderson.com, and Devin is DEVIN. So you can email us through there, or link to my Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can sign up for my newsletters where I send out roughly once a month, just tips for using humor to deal with stress and sharing your magic on a daily basis. So
excellent, and I will make sure that I'll share the Facebook page and the website links on the recording as well for people that are watching later on. So yeah, again, thanks for being on the show. Really enjoyed it. And best of luck with the conferences.
Thanks. Hey, and your English, by the way, is perfect.
I appreciate that. So to give you a quick, in the Netherlands, because I'm Dutch, so I'm living in Spain now for 10 years, but before that, of course, I was in the Netherlands. We start learning English, German, and French at a very, very young age.
Okay.
It's integrated in our school system, and I'm grateful for that. And I studied actually in North Carolina at Western Carolina University for a year, and I did an internship in Asheville for a summer, and actually for half a year, and then I went to American summer camps for 3 years, which I really loved. So yeah, my accent also goes all over the place.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
I gotta travel to see things and travel to learn different cultures. But I've always enjoyed. I enjoyed being in America, although Manhattan was a little over the top. That's too dry for me.
Yeah, it's like a different world.
Absolutely. All right, man. So thanks again. Have a great rest of the day. And for me, it's evening, so I'm gonna read a bedtime story and take my boys to bed.
Awesome.
Let's keep in touch.
You got it. Thanks a lot, man. I'll be talking to you.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you still meeting up with your friends now that you're a father? Kids making you stress out. You got no time for yourself to work out, read, or relax. Can you still remember the time you were hanging out with your friends, feeling energetic, happy, and confident? Spending time together and talking about your life and your crazy dreams. You're feeling alone now, don't you? No one to share your challenges with, and you're just running around from one storm into the next. Well, it's time to change this now. Join me and the Brotherhood of Fearless Fathers to speak on a weekly basis with like-minded dads to crush your challenges, face your fears with determination, be held accountable, and regain control of your life. If you want to become the hero your family needs you to be, then go to becomeafearlessfather.com/brotherhood. I'm looking forward to seeing you on one of our next calls.